Hey, you guys, we are back for another episode of the warm up series. On today's episode, we have author Angelique Mister, and she's going to share a little background about herself. Her story is the story of so many, but in my opinion, it's a story that goes untold too often. So I'm just excited to have her here with us. So we're going to talk about her story of, excelling in academia, excelling in, she was the athlete, she was the scholar, and then, becoming pregnant and making sacrifices for her children. So could you kind of go into your story of where it all started?
Well, as you said, and first of all, thank you, Shamika, for having me here today. I'm most gracious and appreciative. One of the things I want to say is I could say it started when I first got into this relationship with my four sons' father. We were both typical teenagers. I graduated in 1984, but I was a typical teenager. Had been an athlete, track, basketball, cheerleader, very active, very outgoing. Um, Ended up having my first child at the age of 16. Fast forward, by the time I was 20, my boy's father and I had four sons. And then the next year, I had a daughter by my daughter's father, and I married him. But ended up at home at the age of 21 on welfare and food stamps, which was not the case. At that time, I had been accepted into a nursing program. The challenges that I faced with babysitters, because back in that time there were not a lot of daycares as we have today. So I was challenged with trying to find someone to keep my kids, not have enough money to get to school. Sometimes having to miss days from school. So there are a lot of challenges that impacted my ability to finish school. So that's how I ended up out of nursing school. And then I was at home on welfare and food stamps because I had no other skill sets, no other education other than a high school diploma. So I was at home, 21, welfare and food stamps, very depressed.
Okay, let's talk about your village. Like I've talked a little bit about off camera about, you just excelling in different sports, excelling in academia. How were you treated? Was there a shift in the treatment by professors or teachers in high school when once you became pregnant? And if so,
Well,
how?
yeah, that was a challenge because I remember one incident specifically. Because I had always been part of the National Honor Society. And the year that I was pregnant, which was my 10th grade year, I was not allowed to participate actively, well, visibly, I say it that way, not visibly. I was only permitted to work backstage and close the curtains and kind of operate from their perspective. I didn't have a very visible, active role as a participant in the National Honor Society event at school. That's the first thing that I remember where I was shunned being pregnant. And then my senior year, I was there was a nomination for homecoming queen, and I was a runner-up with another young lady in my class. I actually won, and but I had to go to my senior sponsor in secret to let her know that I was not able to be homecoming queen because I was again in my 12th grade year at that time pregnant again with my second son. I was probably about 5 months pregnant, but I was very diligently hiding the pregnancy. So she didn't know that I was pregnant, but I knew that if I tried to wear a formal dress, that the pregnancy would be visible. So I couldn't participate in homecoming festivities.
And how did that impact you as far as your goals? Because first of all, let me ask, what was your personality like before the pregnancies? Like with you excelling and, just being the all around, the all American high school student. What was your personality like before the pregnancy and after?
Oh, I remained very outgoing and positive. It was just in my private time when I was home and really reflecting over my life and wondering and dealing with my own personal issue of how did I end up in this place? And I felt very stuck and lost and didn't know how to get back on track and not having I guess, real support system to get me back on track. Of course, I had my mom, I had women, very prominent women in my family, but I needed, I guess, something with a little more substance to get me back on track. and how to do that, and I didn't know how to mitigate through that piece. But I was fortunate enough to I was, because of my outgoing personality, I was able to find those persons that I became a part of, and organizations I became a part of that helped me transition and becoming more active and getting back on track, if you will.
Okay. You said, how did I get in this place? You were asking yourself, how did I get in this place? How did you get in that place?
Choices, wrong choices, not making quality decisions. Um, with my high school boyfriend, like I said, from the seventh grade to my third year of college, being sexually active, unprotected sex. And as a matter of fact, the ironic thing about it was my mom was the mom who took me and my friends, about five of us, to the health department to get birth control for the first time. And I was the second one to get pregnant in that group. And then when I was using my birth control, I ran into a lot of challenges with taking birth control pills. But in the meantime, I was still being very sexually active with my boy's father. And that's how I got in that place, just not making quality decisions. And as we say all the time, you keep doing the same thing, get the same results. And that was the prime example of that statement.
Okay, what in this situation? Because I want to kind of tap into your teenage mind. When you were making those decisions, do you kind of remember what was going through your mind at the time and what made you make those decisions?
Just being a typical lost teenager, doing what you do when when you're not counting the cost of your actions. You're not playing it out for the most part. Even with my first son, my kid's father, mom raised him. So I really didn't get the real benefits of being a mother or the ramifications of being a mother the first time because she raised him. And then I had my second son my senior year, and it was just catastrophic from there. It was just a matter of just still doing the same thing, being with your boyfriend, thinking you in love as we know at that age, and constantly having the children and not really thinking about it other than when it was affecting my life long term. It really kicked in because I was staying with my mother until I had my daughter. And then I moved in with her father. We moved in together and got a place together. But before that, I don't think it really had a real detrimental effect for the most part because I was with my mom. And so living with my mom, I wasn't paying my own light bill, gas bill, water, that thing. But then when I got on my own, it became real because now it's the first time I'm facing the fact that I've got to provide for me and my children and take care of the other, lifestyle necessities and take care of these things in life that gives you a quality of life, the lifestyle. I wasn't able to give my kids the things that I would want to give them had I planned them. So that's when the reality kicked in. And I had some episodes. I talk about one of the incidents that really taught me a lesson. I remember this very vividly as well because I talk about it in my book too. I was young, and be it that I was with my daughter's father, and I didn't have my own resources, my own money. The only thing because I wasn't working, the only thing I had was welfare and my food stamps. And I remember trying to do my fair share. I'd given him my entire check like on a Wednesday or Tuesday or Wednesday. He was going to get paid within that week, I think that Friday. So I was okay with giving him my check because I knew that if I gave my check, I'll get my stamps and I can, if I need something else, he'll give me some Friday, and or I'll get my stamps. And yes, illegal, but I would sell some of my stamps in order to make ends meet. Well, this particular day when I did that, thinking that I'm doing the right thing, he didn't do the right by me. This end is the end of the month, so it's time for stamps to come back around. And because I sold some, I didn't get the full benefits of all of my stamps, so food would run a little short. Well, this was the time food was a little short, and I given my check, trying to do my fair share in the family setting, but he did not come home with his check that day, and I didn't have adequate amount of food to feed my kids. So I was scrapping on what we had left. And I remember the last thing I had first I fixed them some like small amount of rice, and I had some a small amount of ground beef, and I had some cheese, and I just sprinkled that on it and made them a little goulash to eat. Well, after that was gone, they're hungry again. He still hasn't made it home. So then I took some crackers and peanut butter, and I was digging in a jar. And I remember this octagon table that I had. I was standing over the table, and my daughter, who's the youngest, was seated in the seat, and I could see her face in the bottom of the jar. And as I was digging in the jar, I could see my daughter's face. And she said, "Mom, can you get some out?" as if she was really hungry. And I was digging and crying because I'm thinking that I just gave this man all of my money. My kids are hungry, and he hasn't even thought enough to come back home to feed my kids. And that was a defining moment for me because that day I knew I needed a job and my own money. And that's when I became a very aggressive in trying to find employment, and I did finally get me a job at the State Department of Corrections. I got a job there. I worked for the Community Action Agency for a little while, but about a year after working there, I got a job at the State Department of Corrections, and that was my first real job, if you will, because I got benefits for my kids, and that was my day of liberation, being able to provide for them apart from this system.
Hmm. So, teenage you versus adult you. What did love look like? Because you said, you think you're in love at that age. What did love look like as a teenager with no responsibilities, having people jump in and take care of your kids versus love? What did love look like after you moved out on your own and had to fend for yourself and provide for your kids? What was the difference with
Well,
love at that age?
neither of them, in my opinion, was love as I know it as a 58-year-old. But in the contrast of each other, the first love for me looked like a teenager would see it. We both were athletes. I was a cheerleader captain, football captain. We wore the same number in basketball. We ran track together. My the team that I ran the 440 on, we won the state championship. He won a state. He did set two state records. So we set a state record. So it was just that vibe of how our energy.
Y'all were
We two,
cool, the cool
we were
kid.
we were that couple, yeah, and just friends, mutual, hanging out, doing what puppy love looks like. We together all the time, dressing alike. That looks puppy love stuff that you do. And then as an adult, the love was defined by someone providing for my kids, but I didn't feel valued in the relationship because there was a lot of condescension. There was a lot of condescending statements made all the time, basically trying to keep me down so that I wouldn't progress. And this started after I became employed. Then it became very verbally abusive because it was kind of like, I think for me, I think it was a fear of him thinking that now she's going to leave because now I'm growing and I'm finding myself and I got my own money and I'm not as submissive as I was before because now I have a voice. And I felt that I was validated enough to have a voice because you're not taking care of me anymore. I'm taking care of my own. So neither one of them, in like I say, as an answer to your question, neither one of them was love. It was what I thought was love.
Okay, and now you say as a 58-year-old, what are some of the contrasting differences between those times in your life versus now? Like, how would you describe love now?
Well, love now I know is for one is reciprocated. You don't have to lose yourself. Love is going to make you a better person. It's not going to take away from who you are. It's going to allow you a space to maximize your potential and aid in the progress of your endeavors. See where they can be a part and help you be better. It feels like love, and I always say this: I'm an action person, and I've always believed that you don't have to tell me every day that you love me, because if you show me, I can tell you love me because you're gonna do those things that feels like love. You're gonna support me. You're gonna give me compliments. You're gonna do those spontaneous things for me. You're gonna provide for me. You'll be there when I need you. You're a confidant. You're a supporter. Those things. That's what love looks like at 58. It's a total reciprocation of the same thing in contrast, hearing me, listening to me, and understanding what I'm saying, and responding to what I'm saying. Not only hear me, but make the adjustments in the areas that I say that are issues based upon what you heard me say.
Hmm. Okay, sacrifice, because you've made a lot of sacrifices. What sacrifices can you say that you did make for you being such a young parent for your kids?
The biggest sacrifice I think I made for my kids was staying with the husbands. I was married more than once, staying with my second husband, who was a drug addict. Knowing that he was a drug addict, also very verbally abusive as well as physically abusive, depending on what the situation was. If he was trying to get to his drugs, it's been some situations where it became physical. Nevertheless, at that time, he was working. I remember I had left my job as a police officer to go to nursing school to pursue my nursing career. And I wasn't working, and things were really bad at that time. But I stayed with him because he was the sole provider for my children. He made really good money. He was a truck driver at some point in the marriage and made really good money and provided for me and my kids. His check was directly deposited into my account. So I managed the monies and I was able to do more for my children. He purchased a home for me and my children. So I stayed with him because he created a world for my children that I knew at that time I couldn't provide for them. So I stayed there. I sacrificed my abuse and my own personal peace, if you will, to give my kids a greater quality of life. Fast forward, I learned later in life after having conversations with my children that that wasn't the best thing because they endured more than I realized they had endured. And I didn't know the detriment of the things that they endured until they were adults and we had conversations because the abuse was also geared toward them as well.
So, what type of abuse, if you don't mind me asking, did they have to endure from?
Just verbal abuse coming in high, making them get up and go to bed, yelling all the time, slamming doors, lashing out at them when they were doing chores, just aggressively making them do the chores, and just that anger because he's mad probably because he couldn't get to his drugs, and just everything is tolerate is intolerable for him. So he's very agitated. So he's venting out and projecting that anger on the children or whoever was in the space.
Okay, what was your breaking point? Like, what gave you the strength to finally leave? Can you recall that moment?
Oh yeah, I know the day. I was at work. I was at this time. I had taken on another job as a police officer in another city, and I was at work. And my oldest son is the most humble child of all of my children. Doesn't verbalize a lot of his emotions or what have you. And he called me from work while I was at work, and he said, "Mom," he said, "you need to come home and get your husband before we hurt him." And if my son, the one I knew that was not a very vocal person, very mild mannered and meek, had become that angry enough to call me and give me a warning, and he said before we, which means that it was a joint effort, maybe something they had talked about at some point, but they had made up their minds that it was going to go down. And so that day I knew that I need to get my kids out of this situation. And that's what made me leave. And I left not even knowing for sure if I could maintain my bills without his income. But at that point, I didn't care. I just knew I had to get my kids into a better space. And that's what I did. And I was very strategic in how I planned it out. I planned it out. It was a typical night for him to go out and get high. I had my kids to get their clothes together for a week. We had all of our stuff packed. He came in high. He was in the bed asleep. I got my kids put all the things in the van. So then we get up for church that Sunday morning. We go to church as if normal, but I'd already gotten my peace bond. I'd already found a hotel that we were going to be staying in, and my oldest son could drive. So there was a Chinese restaurant across the street. So each evening he would drive the van over behind the restaurant so that he couldn't find me. Because I said if he tries to find us in a hotel, I want him to see the van. So we would park the van across the street. And me and my kids stayed in the hotel for a week, just giving him a cool down period because I had already filed for divorce. And I knew that when he got the news, he was going to react maybe violently. And I didn't want to hurt him, didn't want him to hurt me or my children. So I left very strategically. He was served the papers, and then we stayed away for a week. And until my divorce was finalized, I continued to extend my peace bond to keep him away from me.
Some, I want to say, yeah, some women don't have the strength to leave, even if it's impacting their kids. So some kids are exposed to that. Some women know that. What advice would you give to a woman that may be going through a similar situation that may want to leave but's afraid, or their kids may be enduring it but they want to stay?
You have to weigh it out. I mean, as I said before, I was there because I thought I was doing a benefit to my children. And although the money was a benefit, the quality of life, because I remember having two phone lines, they got a $25 allowance every week. I mean, so there were a lot of things, there were amenities of our lifestyle that were not going to be there. But I had to weigh that out versus the life of my children, the peace of me and my children. So you have to look at the bigger picture, look at the whole picture, and then like look at it for long term as well as short term. Okay, it might be a short term fix, but what are the ramifications long term? Is it really benefiting you in a positive way or a negative way? And looking at what is your why. What your why? My why was I was staying because I'm giving them a quality of life. But am I really giving them a quality of life when they're miserable and they're being abused? So really, what does a quality of life look like? So in my mind, I'm thinking I was giving them things, but I wasn't giving them peace. And so you have to look at because they had a home. They had probably what a typical woman with 5 kids wouldn't have. And those type things. But at the end of the day, did those things outweigh my kids' peace and their emotional trauma as children that could impact them even as adults? And I'm sure it had its impact over time. So to that woman, I'd just say, look at your situation for what it is, and first and foremost, be real with yourself, because a lot of times when we know situations, we lie to ourselves. We tell ourselves what we want to believe, and we disregard or ignore the realities of the situation. So I just say, look at it for what it is, and be truthful about what it is, and make the decision based on what's going to be the bigger benefit of you staying versus you leaving, and loving yourself, because it has to come down to some self-love. Because when you really love yourself, there are certain things that you're not going to tolerate. And at that time my values were placed in my children. I actually love my children more than I did myself, because I was fine even in both situations that I gave you, the one with my daughter's father and my second husband. I was fine with, I'm not going to say okay totally, but I was fine with my abuse as long as my kids were having and getting what they needed. But when it started to impact them, I knew it was time to go. And that was in both situations. The first time when I gave my check, and now you taking my money knowing it's gonna prevent me from feeding my kids. Now you're messing with my children. The second time, same thing. Now I'm in this situation. You have all the amenities of life. You have a good quality of life as it comes down to materialistic things. But when it boiled down to it, they were not happy. So, and my kids were going to be put in a situation where my children may have hurt him. He may have hurt my children. So now again, my children are in it. So I got to do what's best for them.
Okay. What are
And I
some
talk, let
character?
me just say this, Tamika. In the book, I talk about that, and I call my children, there's a chapter on forced discipline. And that's why I talked about my kids being my forced discipline. They were my forced discipline in so many areas of life. I always considered them first and what things would look like for them.
Okay. What if you could name three characteristics that a woman, because you said you have to love yourself first. Could you name 3 to 5 characteristics of a woman who loves themselves?
First of all, she doesn't compromise her values. She lives by her values, meaning that she knows clearly what her values are and she lives by them truthfully to herself as well as to others. She understands where she is in life in terms of her flaws, her the things that she needs to work on, and she's willing to work on those things to be a better self. She is not afraid to verbalize what she wants, because it's important that other people who she interacts with understands who she is and what she does value and what she wants out of life. And in terms of getting that, you have to be clear enough and not aggressively but assertive enough to say, this is what I'm looking for, this is what I want, and this is what I'm not going to settle for. And then lastly, I think it's a matter of doing those things that keep us healthy, the lifestyle choices, those things that keep us here. Because we can love ourselves, but then kill ourselves at the same time. I love me, fashionably love me, but am I really doing the things that keeps me alive? I mean, because we dress up unhealthy.
Mm.
It looks good. I look fashionable, but am I really taking care of me? What is my stress? What are my stress factors? Do I know what they are? And am I eliminating those stress factors to keep me here? Am I making choices that will be for the betterment of me in terms of making sure that I show the love to myself that I deserve?
Okay. As a woman in your 50s, now we're going to get into the advice for the women. Because a lot of people say, man, I'm getting older. You get social media bashing, women. But you've definitely been one of the people that I admire and I look up to. And I said, I'm excited to get older. So what advice would you have for those who are kind of like aging but they don't really have a zest for life? How do you keep your zest going?
Self love. And I just had this conversation with a classmate of mine at my last homecoming about 2 weeks ago. And she looked really, really stressed. Very beautiful lady, but she looked stressed. There's a different way to lose weight. There's that weight loss that looks like stress loss. And she looked stressed to me. And I just asked her, I said, what's going on with you? And we were talking about it. And I gave her this very conversation because she said, girl, how do you do it? Every time I see you, you're so vibrant and energetic. You're in the gym, you're doing things, you're writing your books. And I said, well, you know what? Um, I love me. And what that looks like is that I do the things that keeps Angelique happy. I don't put my happy in the hands of other people anymore. I don't require other people to make me happy. Angelique makes Angelique happy. Now, if you want to be a part of the happiness, okay, fine. And the conversation specifically that I was giving her was to the children. I'm a mother of 5 adult children. I'm a grandmother. I'm not that grandmother who gives up her life for my grandchildren. So to sacrifice my life again, but then to have a life and deny my own life. Because when I had my kids, I kept my kids and they keep theirs. I'm a mother who um, spend times with them when I want to spend time with them and when I'm ready to spend time with them. You're not going to put the burden of your children on me. I do the things that I want to do. I'm at a place I've done. First of all, you have to be okay with knowing if you've been a mother. I was a mother, hands down. I have no regrets for being a mother because I know the sacrifice I made and I know the intent of every sacrifice, although some may not be the best, but I know that I was a good mother, even in the absence of their father. So, first of all, I'm at peace with that. So, be it that I'm at peace with that, I live with the fact that it's my time. If not now, when? It's time for me to live. I've worked hard. I've worked 2 to 3 jobs at one time to provide for them, to give them the things that they need in life to make sure that they were okay. So now it's just me. So I have a right to live my life. I have a right to pay my gym subscription, go to the gym. I have a right to travel every so often when I want to travel. I have a right to find that love in my life that makes me happy, whether they agree with it or not. I have a right to make choices that brings me my peace from day to day because it's my time. And I'm unapologetically in my own space, living my life the way that I want to live it so that I can live with me and be at peace with me. Because I'm almost 60, and like I said, if not now, when? When do you live? And I see so many women, my age, classmates, and other people that I know give up their lives for their children to have a life. You've already given up your life once. Why die twice?
Mm.
And this another cliche of mine is, I work to live. I don't live to work. So I live my life. I don't bother my children. I don't ask them for anything. I let them live their lives and I live mine. I'm there for support. However their support may look, be it to my children or my grandchildren, I do that. But I don't give up my life for someone else to have a life.
Okay. That's a perfect answer. So, every woman, let's get into this book title and then we're going to wrap things up. Every woman needs a little Niecy. What does that mean?
Well, when I think about Nisi, Nisi is that little broken girl that I was at 21, trying to find herself again in life. Life has taken its toll. I'm trying to find myself, refocus, get back on track, if you will. And the journey I talk about is the journey of those women who were a part of my life that saw me when I didn't see myself anymore. And they saw who I used to be, and they wanted to get me back to that vibrant person again, because I'm sure at some point I wasn't all the way there. So the book just talks about, and I say that every woman has a little niecey. Every woman's had a broken relationship. Thought Mr. Wrong was Mr. Right. Maybe at some point had a child out of wedlock, has had to wear the mask in life because things are not going as well as you're pretending that they are going. So you're wearing the mask, pretending. So we've had all of those types of situations as women, and that's the commonalities of us. So the book is just talking about the commonalities of women, and basically the message in it is to understand that we all have more in common than not. And when we face our commonalities, then we can heal on our differences and respect our differences, but understand each other better, because my situation today may be mine today. It may be yours tomorrow. But if you feel me today, and if I go through mine, I can help you tomorrow. But I got to remember that I was there first and foremost, because so many times we go through things and we forget. And then when someone else is going through something, rather than providing support to them, we provide judgment and ridicule, rather than understanding that I've been that niece before, I've been that lady before, and here's what I did, and just give that support and love. And sometimes you don't have to say anything. Sometimes it's just a matter of just giving a hug or giving an ear, because sometimes people just want to be understood. And the book just talks about that journey from restoring myself, and getting back to where I was and where I needed to be with self. And I can tell you, the day that I had another defining moment with the ladies. The lady who was the first black mayor in the city that where I was living, she was also my landlord. And she had taken me pretty much under her wing, mentoring me, and I didn't know what mentorship was, but she was always there for me. And she took me to an event with a group of ladies, and the women were the Southern. It was a Southern World Black Women's Initiative. It's a group of black women that are leaders in the community, and they are fighting for the justice of women and children by way of the Children's Defense Fund. So I didn't know much about the group. I just went on her word. And me attending this event, I got up being a social butterfly and talking to everybody, getting to meet people. I was meeting Dr. Baker, Dr. Peterson, Attorney Pam Shaw, the executive director, Lita Fisher, a lobbyist. I never heard of a lobbyist. What was a lobbyist? So I'm just getting all these prominent women. They were city council women, mayors, and all these elected officials. And I thought, oh my God, I became so intimidated. I sat in my seat on the bus and I literally cried. And I was angry. And I said, why did she bring me here with all these prominent women? I got to spend 3 days with these women. I don't know anything, to talk about. I'm just a welfare recipient. So why am I here? Nevertheless, I stayed. But when I had that moment of crying, God spoke to me and said, I have you here. And from that moment on, anytime that I was in a situation where I felt intimidated or overwhelmed in any way, I would always reflect on that moment and say, okay, God, it's me and you again. I know you have me here. And I use that as my um, safe space to face my challenges or any type of obstacles I may face in life. I just go into that moment. Okay, God, is me and you. And I use that and fast forward, because I stayed my course with those women. When I wrote this book, those women reached out to me. I was able to go and minister to 78 young girls at the UNITA Black West Leadership Institute, sharing their very story with them and sharing with them that they should stay their course, stay connected to these women because of what they did for my life. I've done many consulting jobs for them over the years, based upon my now, lifestyle and what I do now professionally. So I've done a lot of workshops for them over the years, and um, now I'm that leader working with those same ladies. But I didn't see myself as a leader at that time, so it benefited me. But that's just that moment that I had, and not facing my fears, but I did face it, and it played out beautifully.
Awesome. How can the people connect with you in order to buy your book?
Okay, I have. You can buy the book on Amazon. It's Every Woman Has a Little Niecy. My name, Angelique Mister, is the author. And then I also have a website. The website is www.arthurangelique.com. And you can purchase on the website or you can purchase it on Amazon.
Okay. Can they book you for anything else? Speaking engagements?
Yes, booking engagements. I do conversations with Nisi, and those are my conversations that I host with women, where we create a platform to talk about the issues and talk about the book and talk about some of these issues that we as women face, and basically have these open conversations and dialogue, and kind of work through these issues together in
Oh,
hopes that we all can heal together.
okay. Come on, healing. Come on, commute. And I think if nothing else, we're about to end the conversation. You talked about the power of community, because every woman needs a little niece or has a little niece. Am I pronouncing it right? Every woman has a little niece. Every woman has a little niece is basically saying we all go, like you said, through the same challenges, but community is how we face those challenges. So your book definitely creates community and it creates conversation, because a lot of people may think I'm the only one going through this, but it's nothing new under the sun. So thank you so much for sharing
Thank you,
your wisdom.
Shamika.
Thank you so much. Say bye.